Welcome to Changing Suits. We're your hosts, Val
and Taj, discussing the latest news, views, and general life for us Western Asians.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hello, listeners, and thank you for joining us on the first episode of Changing Suits. My name's Val.
And my name is Taj. And we're going to tell you why we decided to start our podcast. And the reason for me is I talk to Val every day about everything and anything. And quite a lot of the topics that we talk about are really something that Asian females can relate to, experiencing how our cultures affect the way we make decisions in our daily lives. So we thought, why not share that in a podcast? And also, to be honest, I love telling stories. So what better place to do it? Why did you want to do the podcast, Belle?
So I've been doing coaching for a number of years, and a lot of my clients are Asian women, roughly the same age as me.
To be honest, I'm surprised about that, because I thought that Asian women wouldn't go out and ask for help. But maybe times have changed. The younger, well, am I young? But the younger generation now, because there's so much about mental health, are willing to ask for help.
And this is the thing. There's a whole generation shift of realizing that mental health is really important. Especially, I mean, the pandemic was one thing that sort of shot that into everyone's minds, right? So basically, when I was thinking about the podcast, I actually started thinking about doing YouTube videos, because obviously that's, you know,
in thing.
It's out there and everyone watches YouTube. Well, this is the thing. However, I hate videos, right? I hate watching myself on video, but I love people listening to me talk.
So do I.
So,
I really do.
And going back to your first point, I initially started doing some podcasts about what I've learned through coaching and the mental health and the psychology behind a lot of things. But then as it developed and as I carried on having more coaching sessions with women, I think it's important to realize that we all go through very similar experiences. And like you said, we talk on the phone every day. And when I say talk, Suk sometimes says, whilst I'm making roti, he's like, why is she still on the phone? You're not even talking. But there's that thing where on the odd occasion you might come up with a random comment and you start talking about that. But then I related it to the coaching sessions I was having with these women. And everybody is going through very similar experiences. We're in a newer generation where, our parents came from India or wherever they came from, and they have a different mindset. So the way we're brought up is very different from how we'll be bringing up our own children.
Yeah, I agree. But for them, I would say they were trying to settle, and I suppose they didn't really have the headspace, pardon the phrase, for thinking about mental health. It was like, how are we going to make money to get a house, put food on the table? But I suppose our generation's lucky because we've got that basic stuff that's been set out for us by a lot of our parents, to be honest.
And this is the interesting thing that we'll find, I'm sure, during the podcast. Although they had the financial stress of settling down, and Asians in Britain have done so well and they've excelled, they had the stress of that. However, when does stress ever go? So we might not have that same financial stress, but we've got stress from even the combination of the Western world and the Asian world, right? And that's what this podcast is about. We're going to be talking about things like racism, ageism, sexism.
Ism. Anything to do with ism. Yeah, sounds about good to me.
So, we'll be touching on really serious topics.
Yeah, I think one of the serious topics that I really liked from the podcast that we've done was about diversity. And one of my favourite topics on a lighter note, and I think we had quite a bit of a laugh, was about gossiping.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, this podcast is to talk about what's going on, current affairs, what's going on in our culture, but also just to have a laugh, because life's too serious sometimes, right?
It'd be brilliant if the viewers think to themselves, hey, yeah, I understand what you're thinking, what you've been through. I can relate to that. And for that, I think that will be like, hey, I've met my goal in doing this podcast. So it'd be really good for listeners to come and join and listen to the rest of our podcasts. And please comment if you want us to talk about a particular thing.
Our opinions aren't the be all and end all. I want to hear what other people are going through, other people's experiences, and how they've dealt with it, because that will then help other people that are listening to this podcast, and hopefully we grow organically and we just learn from each other.
Yeah. And on a lighter note, to be honest, since I've been doing this podcast, I've been giving my husband a bit of a less earache. Usually he doesn't encourage me to do many things, but he's really encouraging me to do these podcasts because it's like he has to listen to less of what I have to say to him. So it's win-win for everyone.
That's the reason we're doing this podcast. And listeners, if there's any subjects you want us to talk about, let us know. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.